last Sunday, Moores asked a brilliant question, a great question on what is the mission of Redgum. And I'm not sure that I actually had a good answer. And so I've thought about it a little bit, and this is sort of my response. When we finished the main part of church last week, I watched people patiently waiting till lunch was ready. I watched people rushing around the kitchen getting food organised, and people were talking to each other, and they were just nice to each other. People that come from all different backgrounds, all different ages, life experiences. There were even people here last Sunday that did not care and had no compassion for the fact that later that night, Collingwood would lose by 1 point. It's a tragic thing to watch your own team lose by a point. And there are people in this church that do not care. In fact, they even celebrate that. And so we're this funny mixture of people, and we were just being nice to each other. I think a highlight for me last week was watching Annie walk in with something she'd cooked for lunch, and then when we were asking questions, she's sitting at the back and she's putting a hand up and she wanted to participate. She felt safe enough to do that. I saw Jacob and Marie put so much work and love into the spit roast and bring a friend with them, Mitchell, and it was just wonderful to watch. There was people that were here early, setting up, doing words for church. It was just what you'd want to see. So what's the mission of Redgum? Well, I understand the question. I understand why we ask that question. And Jesus was asked a really similar question by his cousin John. And Jesus' response was to say, go back to John and report back to John what you have seen and what you've heard. And Jesus was modelling the mission for us and getting John's team to report back to him. It's not up to us to define the mission of a church. Jesus had already done that. He just said, follow me. And he modelled what that looked like. He made himself copyable. And every church's mission is the same. There isn't a different mission. It's the same mission. And in John 14:12, Jesus makes this extraordinary statement. He says, I tell you the truth. And you know when someone says, I tell you the truth, you're going to have troubles believing what comes next. Jesus is preparing us for the pushback, because we will push back against this, what comes next. Jesus says, anyone, which means God's not fussy, have a look around, God's not fussy. Anyone who believes in me, that's the qualification, will do the same works I have done and even greater works. Our pushback comes from maybe not understanding fully what Jesus was saying. Because the word works has nothing to do with miracles. It literally means our actions, the things that we do, that we are motivated and driven by desire and purpose. It's the action. It's what we do to accomplish the things that are driving us. And the word greater works, that is a measurement of scale. Because Jesus was locked to one place in time. But now his church, we're everywhere. Wherever you go on the planet, the scale of what is happening across the earth is greater, not by individual things, but corporately across the planet. And Jesus' work only had one purpose, and that was to establish God's kingdom on earth, this invisible culture of heaven, and bring it to a visible, physical earth. Arnhem Land is not Bairnsdale, but his kingdom is there. It even goes down as far as Tasmania, of all places, right? And in Matthew 24, Jesus said that he would return when this mission that he'd given us was completed. And I understand why Christians look to what's happening in the world today as an indication of how close it is to when Jesus returns. But perhaps a better place to look is not to the world, but to the church. Look what's happening in the church, I think, is a better indication, because this is what Jesus said, and I'm quoting him. These are not my words, these are his words. This is what Jesus said. And this gospel of the kingdom. And when he says, and this gospel of the kingdom, that means that there can be other gospels. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. It hasn't happened yet. There's been a gospel of sin management preached. There's been a gospel of men's traditions, of working to get your rightness with God. There's been a prosperity gospel preached. There's been all sorts of gospels preached, but not the gospel of the kingdom preached yet throughout the whole world. And when that happens, when we enter that culture, when that culture becomes established inside us, manipulation, putting guilt on people, it's gone. It's not there. Control over other people, it just disappears. Condemnation and comparison, you won't see it when the kingdom's operating. When the culture of heaven is established, you don't have to teach every week on giving, because the culture of heaven is extravagant generosity. You don't need to tell people to invite a friend to church. When Andrew met Jesus, the first thing he did when he stepped into the kingdom that Jesus was offering was to grab his brother Peter and drag him to Jesus. It's just a natural response. Church growth is not the goal. Today, my daughter Mandy, her husband Aaron, 2 grandsons and one of their best mates are at the MCG. They're going to watch Collingwood beat Richmond. A little bit of revenge for last week. I would love them to be here in church. But more than that, I want my grandkids to grow up not resenting God, but having experiences at a family that cements their growth into the kingdom. And I want that to be the highest priority in whatever way that has worked out as a family for them. Hand on heart, I wish everyone that's tripping around Australia and the northern parts of the world at the moment to get away from the cold down here were here together. I miss it when I see you as family, and when someone's not here already this morning, I'm thinking, oh, I wish so-and-so was here. Oh, I wish so-and-so was here. Right? I feel that. But more than that, I want a church where you can be free not to be here. Yes. Not guilted, not pressured, but because this is God's refreshing place for you. And you get nourished. It's why we do our online stuff. Like when I got home last Sunday, there was a text message from someone in the room saying, I now feel like God is holding my hand again. How good is that? And then someone here had a friend in South Australia, Andrew, and he's watching online, and he sends back to someone in Bairnsdale the text message saying how much he got out of the live streaming, and he was disappointed he couldn't be here for the spit roast. Like, it's more than us. And I don't want us to squash people and control people, but release people, because that's the culture of heaven. And if you can get culture established, it trumps mission statements any day. I'm not a fan of mission statements. We don't have one. Culture, if we get God's culture working, that makes a difference. Tom, can you just come out here for a sec? Don't look like so nervous. Just come out. Now, come here. Neil, I need you. Now, I know, Tom, that one of your love language is getting a hug. Yes. And every Sunday when we walk in here, you and I give each other a hug, right? Now, I want you to give Neil a hug. Just watch this. Just give a hug. 3.6 seconds. 3.6 seconds. Thank you. That's it. You're done. You're done. That was your moment of glory, Tom. Don't stretch it out, right? Who taught them the exact timing for that? Because if that hung on for longer, Neil would have started getting embarrassed. How do we know that for men, that's the exact time that is right for an Aussie bloke to hug another bloke, right? A culture. Nobody teaches you. Nobody gives you the instructions. Nobody gives you a mission statement on how to hug. Culture teaches us that. Culture beats mission statements any day. And it's why Jesus modelled the culture of heaven, so we could get it into us. In John 3:17, Jesus explains it this way. He says, I didn't come to condemn the world. If you've ever felt not enough, if you've ever felt like I don't measure up to what I think God wants from me or what other people have put on me, expectations, that's not the kingdom culture. That's man's culture. Lay it over what God has for us. Just for the record, Jesus never preached three-point sermons. He told short stories about big concepts. And he even made up those stories. They were fabrications. So just bear with me for a moment. I want to take you and your imagination on a little journey. Imagine Jesus has returned back to earth and we've all got these glorified, resurrected bodies. And as we start to build conversations with people that have lived in previous generations, you hear a conversation between a Western church leader and just a very ordinary person from the past. And as they're talking, this church leader asks this person, so how old were you when you prayed the sinner's prayer? And he says, I didn't. And this church leader's a little confused, and he says, well, when were you baptised? Well, I wasn't. Well, did you share in communion? I don't know what that is. Did you do any good works, any good deeds? Well, I didn't bash my little brother when he deserved it one day. And so this church leader says, well, how did you get here? And he just looked at him and said, the man next to me on the cross said I could come. That's it. Jesus didn't come to condemn the world, but to save the world. And the word that we translate into English, saved, comes from a Greek word, sozo. I think it's my favourite word in the whole of the New Testament. It's so rich. It means healing and wholeness now. And Jenny, would you come up here, please? We love Jenny. And I'm going to give you a microphone. Everyone else has had a microphone today. You might as well join the mob. Jenny, can you sit on this side? Because I'm right-handed in talking to people. But Jenny, you have been a Christian for how long?
16 months.
16 months. How did you come to a place of believing in God? Because that is not the story of your life. So how did that happen? Because I don't know the answer. So this is me asking questions I don't know the answers to.
Okay. All my life I knew there was something, I used to call it the universe, was always looking after me, or I'd always have to be, behave a certain way, as in being a good person. And it wasn't until I got a job at the Christian college and I was surrounded by Christians and the Bible.
So
and
hang on. You're helping at this Christian school,
yeah,
but you're not a Christian.
No.
Okay.
No, I went there not a Christian, but very aware that there was something greater than me in the world, but I didn't know what it was at all, because I didn't go to church. I wasn't brought up in any churches as a child. So a teacher I was working with at another school mentioned that there was a job going at this school, so I applied for it and I got the job. And honestly, next thing I know, it was within probably a month, I got invited to a church, and on that day I gave my heart to Jesus, because he'd been, as I know now, planting all these seeds all along, and it was him all along that I'd been, wondering about or wanting to do good for, so I gave my heart to him, and he's just been there for these last 16 months in such a way that I cannot even thank him enough. And I thank him every day for not giving up on me. I thank him every day for keep planting those seeds within my life and putting different people in my life. And
so what would be, I'm going to ask you two questions, all right? What would be a highlight of this Christian experience, and what would be the lowest point so far?
The highlight would be both of my boys becoming Christians. That was incredible. I wasn't expecting that at all. I just thought I was on this, selfishly for me. I didn't even think that they would become part of it. So that was just incredible. The low would probably be when I realised, it was kind of a low, but it wasn't for very long. It was just realising how broken I was. It's how low I was. Because then when he started, healing me, and then I realised how low I was. So it wasn't for very long. It was just a moment where I realised how low I was, and then when I wasn't.
So
if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what I want you to show us, the work of Sozo, God's healing and wholeness in your life. So what makes you afraid? What do you fear? What has changed? You can answer in those questions, but what's been the process and what has God done in the healing and wholeness in your life in the 16 months?
Just break that down a little bit more.
Okay.
Question at a time.
Okay. Help us understand something that's changed within you that's a process of the healing that God has done in you.
He has made me feel worthy. He's made me feel that I am loved and I'm worthy of love, which I've spoken about this a few weeks ago. But that's my biggest thing. I feel like I belong. I have a purpose. And yeah, I'm here for a reason, and it's because he wants me here and he's got work for me to do. Yeah.
What are you afraid of?
Honestly, not a lot anymore.
But that's the anymore. That's a little bit I wanted to hear, right?
Yeah.
What's changed? Like, what did you used to be afraid of, and why aren't you afraid now?
I was afraid that I was here for some unknown reason. Like I was afraid that I was just here to earn money and keep a roof over my kids' head. I was afraid that's all there was in my life, and that's all I was ever going to be doing. I was really afraid of that, actually. It was becoming quite an issue for me. I was like, this is it? And not anymore. I absolutely, every day I walk out the door, I actually thank God. At the end of the day, I thank him for all the people I got to come in contact with that day, because I know that I was in contact with those people for a reason. Yeah, I'm excited every single day for who I'm going to bump into and what my experience might be with them.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jenny. Appreciate it. It's nice to actually see the reality of God and what he does, because it's not just a set of beliefs, it's actually progressively changing inside us, setting us free, not to have that fear of not knowing what your purpose is, why there has to be more to life, right? That's pretty amazing. 16 months is a short turnaround for a lot of those things, you know. And last week, we looked at the primary purpose, according to the New Testament, of why we do this. Why do we do this? But to encourage and strengthen each other. That's why we come together. And it's what we can give each other. It's God's gift that nourishes us, and it changes and it heals and makes us whole. See, encouragement just by itself can be healing. There's a story in Matthew where these 4 mates bring their friend to Jesus. He can't walk. And Jesus looks at the friend's faith and responds to the friend's faith, and then he approaches the man. And he says to him, be encouraged. Your sins are forgiven. He wasn't there to get his sins forgiven. He just wanted to walk again. But see, Jesus knew there was more to his story than his physical issue that he approached with. And how many times do we come to God and we present with one problem, but underneath there's something bigger going on? And we have over-spiritualised the word sin. The word sin that Matthew records, that Greek word, they stole it from blokes that used to go out shooting rabbits back in those days. And they went out with a shotgun 2,000 years ago. And if they missed a rabbit, they said they sinned. They missed the thing that they're aiming at. That's all Jesus is referring to. It actually means what you are doing is self-powered, and you're trying to heal yourself and it's not working. And so in Romans, Paul says that anything outside of faith is sin. Well, we've all been there, but it's this word that means to do it in your own strength and it not work. And so the whole point of coming to God is to allow him to do all we need, not just a little bit, but go deeper. Not just a ticket to heaven, but to be set free of a fear, to know purpose, destiny for your life. Jenny, to be able to thank God at the end of the day for the people you've met. That's weird. Not everyone on planet Earth does that. But seeing your world through a God lens, it's entering into his kingdom, it's the culture, it's the way of life of the King of Kings who put this all together, who breathed you into existence, you know. It's quite amazing. Thank you for being part of Redgum. Thank you for all that you do. There is so many really good things that we are getting right. And I believe God's culture and the values of heaven are starting to be expressed amongst us. But in Luke 10, Jesus is talking to the disciples. He says, the harvest is not the issue. It's workers. And then he says, pray for workers for the harvest. And then he says, actually, you're the answer to your own prayer. And he says, go, and he sends them out. And every week, we are struggling to find enough people to operate cameras. This morning, there's one person operating camera. There are over 520-something people that follow Redgum on Facebook that want to be notified of our live stream. There's a big chunk of people on YouTube. There's far more people not in the room than in the room that are actually being impacted by this church. And we don't have enough people to operate a camera. We don't have enough people to operate the live streaming. Most of Coral's and my life has been setting up and packing up chairs and sound systems in public buildings for youth programs and for 9 years in Sydney in a church. Now we walk in, everything's set up. It's there, other than the jumping castle and the fence and the this and that, you know. But if we could just get a few extra people that don't have to be really knowledgeable, just willing to be taught, we can teach you how to do words and to vision switch. My daughter Mandy's rostered herself on next month nearly every Sunday to operate out there, which means she can't lead worship and she can't preach. Like, God's kingdom is working together, and the works are practical. And so I'm asking is, can we please have more volunteers to actually do the mission? We're doing a lot of good stuff right, but we just need some more workers. And so if you could do something, operate a camera, help our live streaming go out, it's not hard, and we can teach you. And that's it. That's how the kingdom works. And once we get a culture of serving, you get energized by it. You come alive by it. It's not hard. If we do it out of guilt, that doesn't work. And so just like you're free to not be here, you're free not to serve. But if you can serve in a team, it energizes, it encourages everyone, and everyone benefits, and the harvest is not the issue, it's the workers. I'm going to pray. God, I thank you for the joy of serving as a team, the cooler team went and they had an adventure serving, investing into others. I thank you that we all have different gifts and abilities, but we also have a joint mission, and it's to establish the culture of heaven, to bring God's kingdom to earth, and it's a territory that takes place in human lives. And I thank you for the privilege of being able to live stream. That requires more work, but it's people's lives that are impacted by what we do in this room that goes out, and that's the purpose, that's the mission. And so, God, I just thank you for all the good things that are happening. I thank you for last week. I thank you for today. Help us have enough workers. I pray for workers. I thank you for workers. I thank you for the work that you've given all of us, that we can all make a difference. I thank you for that.